Yo, what's good, Velocity? How you guys doing tonight? Dude, that was the lamest thing I've ever heard. All right, is anybody at all excited to be here tonight? All right, cool. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you guys are comfortable, if you want to stand up, come up to the front. Would you guys worship with us? This song's called Only Want to Sing. Hands up. I'm not chasing feelings. That's not why I'm singing. You're the reason for my song. Come on, every voice we sing. I only wanna sing. If I sing with everything. If I sing for you, my King. Hands up. More than a song that lasts in a moment. I live a life of honest worship. If I'm here to sing, then I sing with purpose. All the praise. Come on, from the front to the back we sing. I only wanna sing. If I sing with everything. If I sing for you, my King. Up right here, let's go. Come on, everybody's jumping when this drops. 1, 2, ready. did it before, he can do it again. So I'll trust him with what comes next. 'Cause my hindsight says I can count on this. My God isn't finished yet. If he did it before, he can do it again. If I trust him with what comes next, know his love and faithfulness. And my hindsight says I can trust him with what's next. God, I know his love and faithfulness, yeah. There is a promise that points beyond my failure. There is a still voice to silence all my fears. Even the worst of my mistakes are miracles in the making. Miracles in the making. By your stripes I am healed. your stripes, I am healed. With one touch, I am made whole. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. You sing. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. You have spoken, and I know that it is so.
Man, you guys can be seated.
You guys doing all right? Happy Wednesday. To all those joining online, would those in the house cheer for those joining online real quick? I don't know if you can hear that, but we are so stoked that you are here as well. It is almost Christmas, right? I mean, we're getting really down to it. We're getting close. And one of my favorite things about Christmas, and maybe you are the same way, is Christmas movies. Any Christmas movie fans? Now, you might have seen on social media, we posted out several movie options, and we said you can only choose 3. And there were some tough ones on there. And some of you guys voted and weighed in, and I just want to tell you that the number one, almost I think besides one, said that this was their favorite, and that's Elf. I mean, can you beat Elf? Can you? I don't know. It is, my wife and I were talking the other day, and she said something that was in the movie Elf. And I've seen Elf probably 20,000 times, and so I started quoting an entire scene of Elf, and she just looked at me and said, I had no idea that you love that movie so much. And I was like, who doesn't, right? So at least you guys are with me, and now I know we all voted for Elf to be the number one. But here's the thing about Christmas movies, and I think the reason why I love them, I think the reason why so many do love them, is that there's something about a Christmas movie that just makes you feel good, isn't it? There's something about a Christmas movie because very few people make sad Christmas movies. Very few people make depressing Christmas movies. Very few make dark or tragic Christmas movies. Most Christmas movies are inspirational and hopeful and cheerful. And they're all about everyone kind of coming together in the end. And there's a lot of Christmas movies about a really bad Christmas that kind of turns around at the end and everyone's happy and everyone's put together. But here's the thing about Christmas movies. That is not always the truth, is it? If you were to look at your Christmas, you might say, Bradley, my Christmas is not like a Christmas movie. My Christmas, when my family comes to town and Uncle Joe pulls up, like it is not always happy. It is not always together. Things aren't always solved and nice at the end. In fact, usually the ending is the worst time because everyone leaves angry and there's a lot I'm dealing with personally. And so I don't know, Bradley, I just can't see Christmas being a wonderful time of year. And the reason we want to do this series is because I want to step back because I know the reality is our actual Christmas doesn't always match the songs and it doesn't always match the movies. In fact, some of you have walked in carrying very real burdens. Some of you have walked in with serious issues that you're battling through that your person next to you doesn't know about, that your small group leader doesn't know about. Maybe even some things that you've been hesitant to come to church because you're carrying this. Maybe it's something that you thought, if I'm around a group of church people and I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with, I can't be honest about it because they're going to judge me. Or maybe I'm not going to fit in. Or maybe I'm the only one dealing with this. And what I want to tell you is that just so you know, we are all dealing with a little bit of disappointment when it comes to this season. Everyone's looks a little bit different, but we all have somewhere in our lives that we aren't fully cheerful, we aren't fully wonderful. And what I want is a safe place where we can all deal with that together. I want a Wednesday night experience where all of us, regardless of our mess, regardless of our junk, regardless of our mistakes, can come together and say, here's what I'm dealing with, and we can vulnerably, authentically work through that together. And my hope is that no matter where you sit or what you came in with, that you would feel safe, that you would feel welcomed, that you would feel at home, and that you would know that these leaders who are around you, they don't show up every week because I pay them a big salary. They don't show up because the chips are just that amazing at the snack shack. They show up because they love you, and they care about you, and they're here for you. And they too, if you talk to them and ask them, they too have some disappointments. They too have some things that they are wrestling with and that they have carried. And some things, this would amaze you. Some of the things that you are walking through right now that you think no one else has ever dealt with this, they have. And they want an environment, a place too, where they can just say, here's what I've been through, here's what I've seen, and let's do this together. Here's the truth I just want us to all start off on. As we approach this Christmas season, your circumstances might not be what you want. It's different than the movies. It's not what we make these songs about. But the truth is, as you come to the end of this year, your circumstances may not be how you want them to be. Maybe you're toward the end of the semester and you got bad news that you're not into the school that you want to get into. Maybe you just got news that you're not going to be on the sport team that you wanted to be on. Maybe there's a relationship that you thought was going to be a long-term thing that ended. Maybe there was something that happened in school that was embarrassing or tragic or hurtful. I don't know what you're sitting on, but all of us have something that's not exactly how we want it. And then here come the holidays. And here's what the holidays do, and this is crazy. What it does is it puts those issues under a magnifying glass. In fact, it's usually the holidays where some of these things that during a normal year we might can make it past or just brush under the rug. During the holidays, we can't. Because we have all of our families showing up asking us about it, don't we? That used to drive me insane. Isn't it the worst when you just had a breakup or something bad happen in your life and then everyone shows up and goes, so how's it going with so-and-so? And you now have to relive and retell and re-talk about to all of your families, some of which you weren't even close with, that you didn't make the team, or you didn't get into the school, or you didn't make that A in class, or you failed the final, or you broke up, or whatever it is. And the holidays make us relive and sit in and think through our disappointments. And so what I want to do tonight is I just want to look at what do we do with disappointments, because I think that we deal with them all year long, but more so now than ever. And so what do we do with them? And I want to look at a book called Luke. And it's in your Bible. It's kind of toward the right half, but sort of the beginning of the right half, because there are 4 books that you might have heard before called the Gospels. And it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And these are 4 books. All 4 are written about the life of Jesus from eyewitnesses of Jesus. And Luke's is really cool because what Luke does is he saw Jesus flip the world upside down. Jesus showed up. He claimed to be everything that the Old Testament promised. The Messiah, the Savior of the world, the one sent to redeem and restore all of mankind. Claimed to be that guy, God in the flesh. And a bunch of people followed him because they were kind of interested in him. And he was doing some cool things like healing people and doing some miracles. So he was sort of a celebrity. But there were a lot of people like that. There were a lot of prophets and people who did some cool things, but that's not what made Jesus so transformative. What made Jesus transform history was that he died just like he said he was going to. He was actually killed because he was claiming to be God. And then all of his followers left because gods don't die. And so they left and they hid in fear because they were next. And then all of a sudden, just a couple of days later, a few people began to run back into the streets and say, hey, this guy that you killed, he is God. And you were wrong. And he is who he said he was. And this wasn't just a few people. This was hundreds of eyewitnesses who began to talk about and proclaim how they had been seeing Jesus, how he had been fulfilling everything that was foretold that he would do. And all of a sudden, this man, Jesus, began to transform the world. And as more and more eyewitnesses began to talk about their experience with Jesus, what Luke wanted to do was set out to investigate. He wanted to write an historical document, an account of the life of Jesus. So he wanted to go and hear about the stories. He wanted to hear about the people who were healed. He wanted to hear about the people who had these crazy conversations. He wanted to hear about the people who Jesus were related to and gather all of these stories so that those who came after Jesus could know what took place. Now, the cool thing is that's why I love the Gospels, is that we get to read these. And they're not just some kind of stories that were concocted by people way after Jesus died. They were written while the followers of Jesus were still alive to record the eyewitness accounts of what took place. And so as we look at Luke, we get to see all of these different stories. But where he starts is the birth of Jesus. And he starts at the story of who Jesus was and the Christmas story that we know of the start of Jesus' life. And who would he investigate? Who would he talk to and interview about the start of Jesus' life? It's really just Mary or Joseph. And we know that Joseph actually died when Jesus was young, and so it's not Joseph, so he must have talked to Mary. Can you imagine that for just a moment? You're Luke, you're investigating this guy who flipped the world upside down, who seems to be God himself, and you are talking to his mother. And he's asking her about the stories and what took place. And here's the thing about the story of Mary. It is one full of disappointment. That might not be what you thought I was going to say. Because surely the story of Mary is inspirational and powerful and wonderful and happy, and all of it's tied up with a bow. But that is not Mary's story. Maybe that's the end of it because we're on this side of history, but the middle of Mary's story, what she was walking through, was incredibly disappointing. Because here's what happens. She gets this angel sent to her to say, hey, you're going to be the mother of God. You're going to be the one that would bring Jesus into the world. And I know you're young, she was a teenager, and I know you're not married, which is a big deal in this culture, but you are about to have a baby, and it's God's, and I just want to let you know that. Okay, what an announcement. Not what she thought she was signing up for, but then it comes with a promise. And he tells Mary, he said, but this baby is going to change everything for everyone. This baby is finally going to restore God and his people. This baby is going to die for and redeem the entire world, all of humanity. Everyone who will come after this baby will look to this baby to finally have a relationship with God, to be restored from their past, and to be made new. That's your kid. And then he pieces out. So she has a promise. But the next part of her story is nothing but pain. Because as she gets pregnant and people know that she's not married, the rumor mill gets going. And people are talking about this woman who's claiming that she has the Son of God in her belly. And it gets so bad in her hometown, she actually stays with her cousin Elizabeth for 3 months. Because she's so ashamed and so embarrassed and so outcasted from society. And then if it's not bad enough, all of a sudden they call a census. And what that simply is similar to what we do now, but they wanted people to go to their hometown so that they can kind of figure out how many people are in each town and how they're going to be governed and how they're going to set all of that up. And so they call for, while she's pregnant, everyone to head to their hometown. And as a 9-month pregnant woman, she gets on a camel or a donkey, I'm not sure, and she heads across the desert. I just know she doesn't Uber. And she heads across the desert for days at a time to get to her hometown. Now, my wife is almost 8 months pregnant. And yeah, she's a rock star. And if I tell her that we are going to travel for days in the desert on a donkey, she would look at me like I'm crazy. This is not something that was part of what Mary wanted to do with her story. In fact, there was nothing but disruption. Again and again, there's confusion, there's hurt, there's pain. This is not how Mary wanted this to go. And if you can imagine, Mary's sitting back going, God, really? If I have the Son of God in me, all of this is supposed to be easy. I'm supposed to get flighted over there, first class, all of the food and drink I want. That's how it should go. And yet I'm having to just face nothing but disappointment, but from shame from others. And then she gets there. And it's not the pretty little manger scenes that we set up all the time. A manger was a barn. Some people believe it was actually a cave that they would store animals in. A contained space that animals lived in without modern technology. Can you imagine living there? Staying in this? That at the end of your pregnancy, you travel to your hometown. Joseph's family didn't have room for them, and so they just send them off to find a barn or a cave the animals live in, and that's where they're sleeping. Now, here's where I'd like to hear the interview with Mary. Here's where I wish Luke could have interjected and said, Mary, how are things going? Because I think her reply would be a lot of our replies in this season. Her reply might be, no, this is not how I want it to go. This is not how I thought my life would play out. This is not how I thought my marriage would play out. This is not how my parenting I thought would play out. This is not how my role in my family would play out. I am standing at a crossroads where I don't understand or see what's next, and everything around me looks like pain, looks like disappointment, looks like discomfort. So God, how can your promises be true when this is all I see? But here's how she summed up these memories. As Luke's writing about Mary's experience, these are the early days. Here's what she says. Luke 2:19. But Mary treasured up all of these things, and she often pondered them in her heart. So now Mary, past all of that, is saying, those early days, those memories, those disappointing times, I treasure them. In fact, I don't just treasure them, I think about them all the time because they were discomfortable, they were uncomfortable, they were disappointing then, but they are not now. In fact, now to me, those difficult times are a treasure. Follow me here because this statement is going to be tough to get. But time will always give us the gift of perspective. Time will give us the gift of perspective. Because what's happening in Mary is that in the midst of it, there would be disappointment. But on the other side of it, as time had passed, she would see what would become of that disappointment. And she would know that her son did grow up, that her son did become this amazing man who loved and who was generous and who helped people and who healed and who performed miracles, that her son would begin to transform the world. And then that ultimately her son would make a way for her to know God. And her son would make a way for her friends to know God. And her son would make a way for all of us to know God. And her son would redeem all of humanity. And on the other side, she can say, I'm glad that happened. The only thing that will help us get to a place where we can look at disappointment and say, I'm glad it happened, is usually time. Because on the other side of something, as time has passed, you begin to see the good that at the time only looked negative. I know this is hard to get, but you've already seen this in your life in some way, haven't you? Was there something that happened that now you're like, thank God that happened? Was there ever a breakup that in the moment was so discouraging and so terrible and so heartbreaking and you cried so much and now you're on the other side and you're like, thank God? Was there ever a season or a move maybe that your family took and you didn't want to go and you couldn't imagine going and leaving what you had, and now you're on the other side and you say, thank God that God brought me here to this place with these people. It's so much better. Aren't there times in our life that after time you begin to see that God can use the disappointment for good? But in the moment, it doesn't feel good. In the moment, we can't see all that God is doing. Here's how Mary dealt with disappointment. And I think that this is going to be true for all of us. Is that when facing pain, we have to hold to the promise. When we are in the midst of pain, we have to hold on to the original promise. This is the only way Mary could have kept making it through. This is the only way disappointment would have turned to treasures in Mary's life, because she had a promise. She had a promise that her son would change the world. She had a promise that God was for her, that he was using her, that he was with her. She had that, and that was it. And she took that promise, and she stepped into disappointment. After disappointment, after disappointment, after disappointment. And the only thing that she could hold on to is that I know somewhere at the end of this, there's a promise. And I just want to tell you, student, that there is a promise for you. That whatever disappointment you find yourself in, you need to know the promise is God will always love you. God will always be for you. God will redeem any and every situation. that you are never too far, that there is never lost hope, that there is a God who knit you together exactly the way you are. He is for you, and he wants to use you for big things. Now, what if you took that promise as you stepped into your disappointments and your disappointments and your disappointments? Knowing that ultimately at the end of the day, you have a promise. When facing pain, we have to hold to the promise. Because here's the deal, students. Sometimes that promise is all we have. Sometimes maybe like Mary, you are looking around and you want to give up because it just seems like things aren't going the way you wanted it to. And I just want us to kind of imagine for a second, what if Mary had just given up? What if Mary had stopped and thought, you know what? Get rid of that promise. I don't need it. I'm experiencing discomfort and pain and hurting. And so I'm just going to call it here and call it now. And I don't need to keep fulfilling whatever God wants to do in my life. And as crazy as that sounds, I feel like many of us are there. Many of us would say, Bradley, I'm at the point where I think I'm in the middle of my journey. And so I'm giving up. I think I'm experiencing too much difficulty and too much pain. This isn't where I wanted it. And so I'm going to give up on God, give up on what he wants to do in my life. And I just want to plead with you, student, would you continue to hold on to the promise? Would you continue to give it time and believe that God is for you and he is with you and he has big things in store for you? Because if you will hold on to that, you will see time pass and your journey take form, and you will look back at moments of even disappointment and you will treasure them up in your heart because they built you into who God is making you to be. So I don't know what that is for you. But like I said at the beginning, here's what I do know. There are a lot of people around you who are so for you. And sometimes the thing that we're dealing with is so cloudy and it's blocking our vision so much that we need reminders of the promise. And so I want to tell you, first thing, you're doing amazing because you're here. And so if you're struggling with something and you are showing up to be reminded about the promises that God has for you, that is not coincidence. You are doing an amazing thing to continue to see and feel and hear the promises that God has for you. But also, as you go to small group, I just want to ask, would you not let it stop here? Would this not be the only time you say, okay, I want to be reminded of the promises that God has for me? But when you go to group, would you allow other people to remind you? Would you allow your leader and students next to you who care about you to remind you of all the promises and the good things that God has in store in your life? So I don't know what that is for you, but I'm going to have a moment. Let's just bow our head and close our eyes. And we're not going to think about the person to our right or to our left, but just for a moment, sit with God. And I want you to tell him in your own heart, what is that thing that you're feeling disappointment over? What is that thing that you are dealing with that you feel like it just shouldn't be this way? Would you talk to him about it right now? Would you give that thing to him? God, I pray for every student right now who's hurting, struggling, who is sitting in disappointment and they can't see the promise. God, I pray that right now you would make that so clear and so real to them. That you would give them a promise for their life, that you are for them, that you are behind them, that you have set them free, that you have made them new, and that they would hold on to that so closely, that it would help them in the season of difficulty. That as they push through and walk through this tough time, God, that you would just be so present. So over these next few moments, we just sit with you. We bring our disappointments to you. And we believe that you can do something with them. So God, as we sing these songs together, would you allow them to be reminders of the promises that you've given to us? It's your name I pray.
Great. Okay, guys, so before we dismiss you guys, don't forget that next week is our Velocity Christmas party, okay? Yeah, let's give a round of applause for that. So, if you guys want, you can get a gift up to $5. If not, you guys can find something funny or a game around your house, whichever one works. And also, for those of you joining us online, just text the number that's on the screen if you guys want to join a Zoom session to be a part of your group. Well, all right, guys, you guys have a great night with your small group, and you guys are all dismissed.
When you text me, I was like,